Hello, I'm Derek. I'm a software engineer here at Syntasso, and today I'm going to demonstrate what your platform could look like if driven by Kratix. I will be performing two main roles. The first one will be as a platform engineer, a member of a platform team or a platform group, and the second one will be as a developer that is actually using that platform to get the services that they need. So, as the platform engineer, I will be installing three Kratix promises. Promises are the building blocks that allow the platform teams to define what needs to happen and what needs to be configured to get anything as a service. Uh, with that hat, the head of the platform engineer, I'll be installing a Jenkins promise. That promise will deliver Jenkins as a service. The Jenkins instance themselves will run inside a Kubernetes cluster and will be powered by a Jenkins operator. I'll install a bucket promise to deliver S3 buckets as a service. And this promise will use Terraform to create a bucket on AWS. And the third promise will be a DynamoDB promise that will deliver DynamoDB tables as a service. For this particular promise, we use Crossplane to create the cloud resources. With my second hat, the application developer, I'll be interacting with the platform using Backstage. So I'll use Backstage to discover what are the available services, request new instances, and check the instances and track the instances that I have requested. So with that, let's get started. Before we start installing the promises, let's just quickly review the current setup. I have two Kubernetes clusters here. One is a platform cluster that is actually running Kratix and will be the main point of interaction with the platform. We also have a worker cluster that is set up to receive the workloads from Kratix. So Kratix is going to schedule the workloads to run on the worker clusters. And in this worker cluster, you can see that we have a Crossplane already installed. I also have a running instance of Backstage. As you can see, there's not much here. It's all empty, but we're going to start populating it as we install new promises into the platform. So let's do that now. Cool. So let's install first promise. As we've discussed, the first promise is going to be the Jenkins promise. So as a platform engineer, this is the role that I'm performing right now, I have direct access to the platform cluster. So I can go and run kubectl commands. So I'll go ahead and install my Jenkins promise. So this Jenkins promise is backed by the Jenkins operator. So when the application developer makes the request for a new Jenkins instance, what they will get is the Jenkins running inside the Kubernetes, inside that worker cluster that we saw previously. And as you can see, once I install the promise, what Kratix will do is going to start scheduling the prerequisites. So what are the dependencies that my promise needs to make it work? As you can see, the Jenkins operator, which is my dependency, is starts to come up a line here on the worker cluster. And at this point, if I go to the Backstage and do a quick refresh, I should also see that my Jenkins promise is now ready and available to be used. And as the platform engineer, my task is completed. Now, I'm providing Jenkins as a service. Any application developer that goes to Backstage can see it there. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So let's quickly swap hats and become the application developer. So instead of using kubectl directly, the application developer is going to use Backstage to interact with the platform. So as you can see, they can come over here, they can look around, they can see what are the sort of services that I have available. They have Jenkins, they can click around, they can see links, supports, all of the features that Backstage gives you. You can probably configure it the way you want, but as interested, they can go and create a new Jenkins instance. So you can see that they have a new template here, which they can choose, and they can come over here and say, okay, create me a new Jenkins. So we can send that request and hit create. You can see that the request hit Kratix. Kratix accepted that request, is happy to make it work. And what Kratix will do on the back of that is to kick off the Jenkins pipeline, the request pipeline. So this request pipeline is something that is defined by the platform engineer team, and it's going to run a series of actions to make sure that everything that needs to happen on the back of a request of a new Jenkins happens. So one of those things is actually go back and populate Backstage. So if we refresh, you can see that now I have a new instance of my Jenkins being tracked here in Backstage as a type service. It says it's running in this particular worker, and it has all the information that the user needs. So they can click about and then can find links to the dashboard and all of those things. Jenkins take a little bit of time to start, so we're gonna go back to see that Jenkins is actually running once we install all the other three promises, or the other two promises, and you can also see that my Jenkins, the Jenkins instance that I just requested is starting up here in the worker cluster. So let's swap heads again and install the next promise. All right, so let's swap heads, and as the platform engineer, I will now install the next promise, so add the next as a service functionality on my platform. Let's go ahead and do that now. And this functionality that I'm providing is S3 buckets as a service, as we have previously discussed. But different than last time, this will actually use Terraform to instantiate those cloud resources. So instead of running a Jenkins operator and running something inside the cluster, we're going to run in the pipeline Terraform, and that's going to use an existing infrastructure, perhaps, that we already have to orchestrate those resources in the cloud. But once again, once I install the promise, my job as a platform engineer is done. I can go and I can refresh my Backstage, and I should see a new promise, a new functionality now available. It's called the S3 bucket promise. And that should be all that my users need to do to know to be able to request the new instances. So let's swap hats, go back to the application developer that is using this platform, and let's request some S3 buckets. But before we do that, let me just show you here on S3. We have a couple of buckets, just quick refresh, that are already there. And as the user requests a new bucket coming up here. I also have a Terraform repo. So this is the basis, this is the files that the pipeline is going to be using. And you should also see a commit coming up from Kratix, from the platform, to update the changes here on this repo. So let's go ahead and send that request. So I can go back to Backstage, click in create, and I should see that now I have a new service available as well, as the platform engineer have configured. Me as the application developer, I can see and go ahead and choose to create one. So let's go ahead and do that now. Bucket CI, and I can give the name of my team as well. I can go ahead and click create. So once again, Kratix have accepted that request and will act by triggering a series of pipelines that will create the resources. You may be asking, what are those fields in here? Where do they come from? This is all configured by the platform team to have the configuration options that they want. So when you define a promise, when you create a promise, you also define what is the API, what are the fields that my user can configure. And this can be, of course, as complex or as simple as you want. The platform engineering team could have said, oh, provide me as well with, I don't know, billing account, or provide me with region, or any other information that is relevant. But the interesting bit is that the platform team can define what the user can change, inject their opinions in the pipeline, and build the resources that they need on based on that. So at this point, we should see that Kratix received that request, that original request, and is triggering a series of events that will create that resource use Terraform. So you should also be able to come over here and take a look at the pipeline that is currently running. We can see the logs of that pipeline. And as you can see, this is the plan that is currently running. So you can see that it's saying, I'm going to run a create. I'm going to run a create of those resources. And then that's running Terraform at this point. And you can see that all of the bits that the pipeline is doing here are completed. And you can come over here to home. And at this stage, you should also see a pointer to that new bucket that I just created. So the user can come over here and see. And also, more important, if you come over here and refresh on S3, we should see that we now have a new promise or a new service created based on that promise that is using Terraform. And finally, if I refresh my GitHub repo, I should see a new commit coming up. And you should see that this commit is creating or adding that new resource that I just created here on the pipeline. So that's it. That's the full flow of getting S3 buckets as a service. So let's once again swap hats and install the next promise that we want to provide. Okay, back to the platform engineer role. Let's install the last promise. Go ahead and hit that up. And what this promise will provide is DynamoDB tables as a service. This promise is slightly different than the previous one, in that it will use Crossplane to create those resources on AWS. So when a user requests a new DynamoDB table, it will create a table and also create a bucket to store any larger items that will not fit on the table. And both of those elements will be created via Crossplane. Not different than last time. I installed my promise. I should be able to refresh Backstage and see that there is this new service now available. And my job is done. The platform engineering team is now providing DynamoDB tables as a service. So let's swap hats again and become the application developer. The application developer can navigate to Backstage. They can filter the promises. They can see, oh, I have a DynamoDB. I want one of those. And they can go ahead and click create. Just before we do that, let's just double check that we have nothing currently created here on AWS, which is great. So let's go ahead and send that request and create those services. So let's go ahead and click create. Similar to last time, we now have a new service available. I can go click create. I can call it Dynamo. I don't want to configure any partition key, and I want the region to be the US. So let's click next. We can review, click create. Same thing that happens last time. Kratix will receive that request and then will act on the back of that request. And it will act by triggering the request pipeline. So if you go back here to the clusters, we can see that pipeline got triggered, and that will in turn trigger another series of events that will create the necessary resources both on Crossplane and on Backstage. So at this point, we should be able to come over here and see that a new Dynamo service is now being provided in the Dynamo in the Kratix worker. Similar to the other ones, I can click about. I can see documentation. I can see anything that the platform team wants me, the application developer, to know on the back of that request. And after a little bit of time, I should be able to go to my AWS console as well and refresh, and I have my DynamoDB table now there available and active. I should also be able to see in my buckets the bucket that is associated with that particular table. All of that driven by the Crossplane that is running here on my worker cluster. And that's it. We delivered all of the 3 instances. We delivered all the 3 services on Backstage via Kratix. I remember now we also promised that I would show Jenkins is running, so I can come over here and see that my Jenkins is actually up and running. And yeah. And that concludes our demo. I hope you enjoyed, and please reach out if you're interested in hearing more about Kratix and how Kratix integrates with tools like Backstage and Compass, and how you can leverage that to deliver your platform. Have a good day.